I suppose you could liken it very much to a swan. It looks serene on the surface, but there's quite a lot of paddling going on underneath. These guys have been training for quite some considerable time. They've spent time setting up the equipment and the rifle and tuning the rifle to the ammunition in order that it gives the most precise results that it possibly can. And the name of the game is, it may sound slightly disinteresting, but doing exactly the same thing time and time again. So what they're trying to do is repeat the movements and the process of loading the rifle, of taking aim, of taking up the trigger, of following through, of reading the wind, which is quite an important factor. A lot can happen to a bullet in 50 metres when the wind's blowing. So they're taking all those factors into account to repeat that process in order to produce that perfect 10. There's a lot of physical, I won't say effort required, but a lot of physical control in terms of basically being absolutely still. The other one is, as well, is in the terms of the thought process, because the physical part of it's got to be the same time and again, but so really has the mental process. You know, it's no good thinking, it's no good thinking I'm doing really well. And it's like also really no good thinking, oh, I'm not doing well, because that can affect the next shot. And what you've got to try and do, if possible, is meet each shot in the same way. And it's that repetition, physically and mentally, of the process that brings about good results. And that's what they'll be trying to do. As part of that, they'll find that their focus is changing as well. So when they're loading, they'll be focusing on loading in a smooth and efficient manner, making sure that they put the cartridge into the breech in exactly the same way each time. And then they'll move on to where they're feeling the position as they settle down to start to take aim. They'll be feeling that the muscles are relaxed, all the pressures are the same on each shot. And then things will start to move to what's happening out there, what's happening with the wind. Which flags are they going to watch? Which direction is it coming? And they've got to wait for the strength of the wind to be exactly the same as it was before. And then they'll be starting to move towards triggering, squeezing the trigger, following through, which means looking through the sights after you've fired in order to maintain that position while the bullet leaves the barrel. And then they'll evaluate what's happened, and then it's back to the beginning again and repeat the process. And it's, you know, there doesn't look to be much going on, but there's a lot of processing going on throughout the whole thing. In alignment with many forms of meditation, in shooting, you've got to concentrate on one thing. It's no good thinking about what's for dinner or what's happening at work or who you've fallen out with or anything like that. You really must focus on all the parts of this process that we've been talking about, as well as aiming, of course, which we didn't really say much about, you know, making sure that the sights are in alignment. And in doing that, it takes your mind away from all the pressures of the day. And I think a lot of people go shooting of an evening. I mean, competition's part of it, the recreation and the meeting friends is part of it. But there's also that almost meditative process that takes you away from a lot of the pressures of the day. And it's quite therapeutic. A lot of people say that. When we step back and look at shooting, you can do it almost from cradle to grave. You know, we've got people of all ages that compete in all different disciplines. We've got guys down there on the firing point that have, you know, that are probably at university or something like that. We've also got guys down there that are in the 70s, all competing together. And you know, you couldn't say that one age group or ever is gonna beat another. And there's guys down there with disabilities that are shooting. It's certainly gender's no issue with it. You know, men and women can compete equally well. In fact, the overall competition down there is co-ed anyway. You know, men and women competing together in the NSRA 50-metre championships. And that's one of the beauties of shooting for me. You can do it forever. There's always a landing place for everybody, no matter what their ability or disability might be. I mean, within shooting, some people find it difficult to imagine, but we even have blind shooting competitions, whereby we've got equipment that allows blind people to take part in target shooting. So, you know, it really is something that anyone can get involved in, no matter what age or stage they're at. first place, Ken Parr.
Anytime you get on the range, you always want to win. I think it's been 3 years since the last one. So I won it 3 years ago. Obviously, kind of going into it, defending champion, you want to kind of go out and win. So I had a kind of a decent start this morning in the elimination round, and then kind of made the mistakes kind of in the morning. Understood what I needed to improve in the afternoon, and kind of actually had a pretty decent performance. So I was pretty happy all in. So yeah, I mean, I definitely felt I was out practice for sure. I started really well, and then you start going, oh, it's going quite well. You start thinking about a few things, but I managed to kind of get that stuff in check and kind of bring it all back and focus on the competition. It was quite helpful. The conditions were pretty nice today. I know yesterday was very windy, so I didn't know what to expect today, but it was couldn't have hoped for much better. I've been in the sport for kind of over 20 years now. I think every day you're learning, every day you're pushing yourself. I think unlike other sports where it's less competitive of like up against someone else, obviously there's medals to be won at the end of the day, but I think it's very much a personal competition. So the battle of how do you keep your emotions in control, how do you keep your body in position, kind of working in harmony. So I think it offers a lot to kind of like that self-improvement of kind of like bettering yourself, kind of and it's very addictive. As I said, over 20 years of doing it and still keeping at it.